Good morning, beloved. Goodness, good to be back. Happy Monday afternoon. Man, I am 30 days into my cold shower routine, and I have to say, after today, I'm owning it. It was this morning. Usually I have to play these silly mind games, and I have to work myself up into it, and I get Wim Hof on my phone, and I prop him up there. Not this morning. I was actually a little pressed for time. Just got out of my cold shower myself, and I just said, I just need to make this happen. I got in there, just owned it. I feel like I could stay in there indefinitely. It doesn't even faze me anymore, and I've got an eye on that cold river. Some good news, some very good news, because our membership has been exploding of late. We have unlocked the opportunity for new member emojis. I know, it's the little things in life. The member emojis, maybe some of our members can throw some up here in the comment section. It's a fun thing that YouTube does where the more members you have, the more access you get to those. And we just unlocked the next phase. So if you have ideas of what you'd like to see for the brand new emojis, you contact Overton or the middlemen, let us know in the comments, and we will make those happen. I will make those today. So very, very exciting. Also, some good news. I had a nice phone call today with the folks over at Rumble. Now, we've been looking for alternative platforms. You know, it's nice to spread things around a little bit. And there's a lot of fun things that are really important or instrumental to my lifestyle, our lifestyle, that we cannot share, primarily firearms related items. So we are exploring maybe an opportunity where we can go over there and be having an exclusive live stream where we can do whatever we want to do. We can cover plate carriers. We can do Mark 18 builds. We can talk about optics. All of those fun things that used to make YouTube so great that are no longer available to us. So we'll have to figure out the best way to do that, how to get, pick a day or what that is, but I'm working on that, and it was really nice talking with them. They really rolled out the red carpet for us. They said, we'll get you verified, whatever you need. We talked about time slots, what's going to work, and I'm excited for that. So look forward to that. I'm very, very happy and excited about that. Overton brought up a really interesting idea. I was talking to Overton and some of the other guys last night about different things, and he said, you know, something that's been coming up a lot in the comments where a lot of you guys are finding yourself is you want to be prepared, you want to have all of your ducks in a row, but you're in between spots. Maybe you're looking for land, maybe you're building someplace, maybe you've got bare land, but you're still stuck because of job or family. A lot of people, probably the lion's share of you, are in that position, or even maybe staying in a condo or an apartment. And folks think that they can't do anything or maybe hold off. You know, we hate to invest in a rental. We hate to invest in a bunch of things that we're just going to have to pick up and move along. And I thought maybe we can address that today. And, you know, because I have found myself in that position. Before I met Mrs. W, I was an apartment dweller, of course, and times were different then. I didn't really have an eye towards preparedness. But what I did have is I worked on my own stuff. So I always had a shop. I grew up working in my granddad's shop. He was an auto mechanic, and I always worked on my own stuff and always wanted a shop no matter where I was at. So when I rented an apartment or a house, it was really important to me that I always got at least a garage. And so what I found myself doing was in renting a small apartment and getting a garage off-site, you know, just a little tiny single-car garage, I found ways where I would set up my workshop in a way where I didn't have to lose it or leave money behind or put anything in permanently, that I could pick up quickly and move. So maybe we'll talk about that today. We'll kind of gear towards that. And if you have any particular questions about that, I have some ideas that I think might be helpful that worked for me certainly in the past. We have a couple of super chats I'm going to jump in here on. Evan Roach, and brand new member. Welcome, Evan. Good to see you here. Evan writes, cold shower day 3 and past 3 minutes. Have been burning up since and knocking stuff out here at the house. Great filter video, by the way. Yeah, man, I'll tell you, gentlemen, I just don't have the words to emphasize what a benefit these cold showers are. If you're just joining us, I have been doing the Wim Hof cold shower breathing method. And I went from, I'm 53, so have not had the energy of late, especially after COVID. After COVID, I kind of let myself go, put a bunch of weight on, and spent less time outside and more time out inside, and just kind of got that doomer gloomer attitude. And Mrs. W, we both kind of fell into that category. And right before, even like 4 or 5 weeks ago, the thing I just remember, we'd come home after supper, we'd be on the couch, we kept saying, man, I'm just so tired. I'm just so tired. I haven't said tired or the word exhausted or anything. That hasn't even come out of my mouth since I've been doing this. It's phenomenal. I decided this morning I'm going to bump up. My cold showers are going to go from 3 minutes to 4 minutes. 4 minutes. Another thing that was really interesting. So I'm going through his 10-week program. I purchased it. Mrs. W and I are going through it together. And the third week was something that was really interesting that I wouldn't think was possible. He said, in this program, before we start, I want you to do as many push-ups as you can. Now, I'm not the fittest guy in the world, and so, and I'm talking real ones, like down properly, not girl push-ups or knee push-ups, but real ones. And so I ripped out about 32 push-ups. I could have maybe added another 10 on top of that, but it would have really hurt me. I'd have been sore the next morning, but that's to the point where it started to get kind of uncomfortable, right? Well, then, this was a test, right? So then you go through the breathing process, which is basically 40 deep breaths, hyperventilating, big breaths, in and out, and then you do that 4 cycles. So 40, and then you hold your breath in between as long as you can. I can hold my breath now for 3 minutes. Unbelievable, right? 40 again, hold your breath again, about 3 minutes. Hold you again, and at the last set, after you hyperventilate and you blow the air, completely empty your lungs, immediately go into the push-ups, right? So you would think that after this, I did 32, and that after these 4 cycles of hyperventilating, and then no air in my lungs, right? And then jumping right in to rip out a bunch of push-ups, 50, easy, and I could have done more. It started to get a little bit uncomfortable. I probably could have done 60. It's incredible what is being unlocked in this. I don't even understand it myself, but it's wonderful. I would encourage you to do it. It's very encouraging to me to see folks like Evan. Shout out to you, Evan. Wonderful. It's life-changing. It's absolutely life-changing. We have a super chat from GLG Forge Work. Shout out to you, GLG. He writes, and 1-year member, don't let me forget that. He writes, afternoon, Cody, hope you're having a blessed day. Yes, we're having a good day. Monday kicks off the live stream, and I'm very excited about that. So I got up this morning. One thing I've been hearing from you guys is, man, the shorts are cool, the live stream is cool and all that, but what we really want is the long form content. We want the old videos back. We want the projects, we want the woodworking, the axe handles and such. I hear you. I get it. Now there's a reason why I haven't been doing that, is they just haven't been doing very well. And I thought for a while, like, well, maybe I've lost my mojo, or maybe I'm not putting the time into it. And so this was a few months ago, so I put effort into it. I've been doing this a long time. I know what works. I know what the difference between good and the difference between bad. And it's a direct correlation of how much effort you put into it, right? You can be lazy with content, or you can put effort into it. To put effort into a long form video, let's say 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 minutes, right? It's an all day process. By the time that you think of the idea, gather all the materials, it's inevitable you're not going to have something, so there'll be a trip to the store. Either I have to go to the hardware store, or Jariah goes to the hardware store, and then setting up the camera and the lighting, and then from that time, and then the post, the editing. It's a 12-hour process. I'm happy to do it. I've done it for over a decade. That's what I do. That's my job. I like it. And I'm happy to do it, provided that the juice is worth the squeeze. But when you put that effort in and it does not produce anything, then, I'm not here I'm here to reach people. I'm here to put content up that people are going to watch. That's what I do. You know, it's not, I'm a human being, you know, I don't mind doing it. I'll put 12, 14 hours into content if it's going to be watched, but if it's not going to be watched there's just no point to it. You know, perfect example. I put up a video this morning. I got up at, I said, like 4:30, 5 o'clock, come out here. I'm like, I'm going to work a little bit harder, put a few more hours in the day, burn the midnight oil and get some long form content up for everyone. That water filter video, you know, may not be everyone's cup of tea, but that was a good video. It was shot nicely. It moved along. It was easy to watch. It was informative. It was interesting. It was something that's interesting to me. And usually if it's interesting to me, then I'm not alone. It's interesting to other folks. It just falls flat. You put that up there and it just does nothing. No engagement, no comments. It's hard to believe. I can't help but think that, and everyone is always saying this, and you know, YouTube's keeping me down or YouTube's oppressing me, but how else can you explain it? Because video content like that in the past would have done very well. It's watchable, 5-6 minutes. It's something that benefits, you know, you can learn something from it, but it just falls flat. And so you take that and, you know, hours and hours and work, you know, I was working on that from 5 o'clock until just now when I ran out of here, jumped in my cold shower, shoveled my breakfast down, started the live stream, and you look at it, it doesn't do anything. But you take that, contrast that with yesterday. What did I do? The kindling cracker. I was wrapping up with something out here, and I had about 10 minutes, and I turned on my camera, and I thought, well, I'll just shoot a quick short, because this is the new kindling cracker, right? People ask me, why did I do the kindling cracker video over again? Well, it's because this is a whole different deal. This is the big one. Remember the last one that I had that I got the firewood piece stuck in there? Well, this one's far superior. It's bigger. So I thought, well, I'll just shoot a short on there. I didn't have more than maybe 10 or 15 minutes making that video. One take, you know, a couple takes, very, very simple. Edited it on my phone on my way out, throw it up there on TikTok. You know, that thing will hit 500,000 views today. You know, so I mean, it's like, good grief, you know. I mean, you gotta go where people are watching or where it's being promoted. And so that, to answer your question, you know, why I'm not doing that long form content, it's just not being promoted, or it's not being promoted on my end. So I don't know. It'll be very interesting to see if I threw that up there when we start getting established over on Rumble, if that picks up or not. But you know, it's all about surfing the algorithm, and it's a constant. They're shifting the goalpost, and they're really driving people. I think they're really driving people right now to live stream and to do the short content. So that's why we're doing it. So we got to do. This is the framework that we're working in. All right, you know what time it is. It's time to light the lantern. Looks like we're a little bit low on fuel. We've been talking about behind the scenes with the middlemen, putting together some merch, and everyone has ideas, and they've been using is it Microsoft Paint or one of those free design softwares for concepts and different ideas, you know, to rough things out until we can get it over to creative and someone can draw it up for sure. But one of my favorites was it was a picture of the stump here, the chopping block with the axes and the lantern engulfed in flames. That needs to be a sticker. All right, I have to focus here, as I'm so fond of saying, you're watching a man operating at the extreme limits of his ability. The first hurdle is if we can do this without spilling gas all over. You know, it's a funny thing that ever since we ditched the newfangled funnel, have we even had a fuel spill? Now this thing will trick you though. It's like a 2-stage dripper. You can lay it right there and it's fine. The moment you move it and pick it up, then it spews out more fuel. But I've got its number. Yeah. $30 pumps. This is the worst part of my day. It used to be the cold shower was the worst part of my day. This is by far worse. This is a dual fuel lantern that is somewhat temperamental. Oh, God. He gets me every time. Every single time. Even I know it's coming. Boy, the smell and the whole ritual brings back such memories. My granddad and I would leave elk hunting. To go elk hunting, we'd leave on Friday nights. Granddad worked as a mechanic, and he only had, I think he had 4 weeks. Yeah, he had 4 weeks of vacation off a year. He took 2 weeks. Him and I went elk hunting. 1 week we went deer hunting. And 1 week he went with my Nana and took her up to Banff, Canada. They used to like to go up there. And we would be all packed up. We'd start packing up midweek. And Granddad would, he had a 1977 Ford F-250 two-wheel drive, and a burnt orange with a tan interior with the worst engine Ford ever made, the 400. 400 with a C6 automatic. But it was a full-length pickup, 8-foot bed. And a week before season would start, he had the old green Army tents. They were, or not tents, the old green Army canvases, just like a tarp. And we would, it was smart how he did it. He would lay it in the bed, and then the excess would fold up over top the cab. And then we would start stacking all the equipment in there. We'd have our wood stove for our tent, our wall tent, all of our the cooking stuff for the hot water, the waffle makers, the sleeping, the bedroll, pack boards, ammunition, all food, all that stuff. He really did a good job on it. It was super efficient. He'd been doing it since the 40s. And the clever thing about it was that once, and this was before, he never used the blue plastic tarp or anything. He had those old green canvas tarps. And we would get it all stacked in the back of that truck, and then we would take the tarp and then fold it over the back. That way it made like a taco, like this, so that when it rained on you on the way, you didn't have a seam right there, and the seam was in the back. It was quite clever, and you could tie it down, and it was a really good, nice, tidy load. So I would be all ready over at his house. I'd get there about noon. My mom would drop me off. I'd get to take off school that day. And waiting for him. It was the longest day, waiting for him. I'd be like 12 or 13, waiting for him to come home. And as soon as he got home, he'd take off his work clothes, kiss my Nana, he'd kiss my Nana goodbye, and we'd hit the road and drive all night to get ready, because we had to hunt the next morning, right? Man, those were good times. I remember that. But we would show up, he was just such a tough old guy. You just didn't know, I didn't know any other way. Like we would show up sometimes in the middle of night, and after driving for 5, 6, 7 hours, and set up that tent, set up the old wall tent. And he didn't have like a frame for it. We just had the blank wall tent, just the old Army tents, and we would go out and cut down, we'd have to cut down 5 trees. Two trees per side to make a cross, kind of like a teepee, cross on both ends like this, and then a ridge pole. And we'd have to cut off all the branches, and we would feed the ridge pole through the holes and lift up one side and lift up the other. And just about by the time you got tents, your camp set up and your stove going and your lunch packed and everything, it was about 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning, and you headed out for the hunt. But Granddad said that back in the day before the highway, before the interstates were put in, him and his brother would drive all the way from the west side of Oregon to the east side. And Oregon's a great big state, right? Before the interstates, they had to take the old roads, and they were super, super windy, like going through the Columbia River Gorge, and it wind through the mountains and gravel. It was like a 10, 12-hour drive. He said they would drive for a while, about halfway, and then they'd get tired, and they'd pull off on the side of the road, and they'd pull an old canvas tarp out, throw it on the ground, put their sleeping bags in, throw it over top of them, and sleep for 2 or 3 hours, get a little rest, and then jump back in and continue on. Men, they were tough. They were tough, those old guys. We have a new member, Sinkable Mite. Shout out to you. Welcome, welcome. Glad to have you here. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. And Brian M., member for 1 year, spill time. We didn't spill, did we? No, man, I got to talk and I didn't realize how seamless the whole process went. Excellent. Excellent. Shout out to you. Thank you, Brian. Good to see you here. And we have a super chat from Josh C., 4-year member, one of the elite. Welcome. Good to see you here. He says, recently you mentioned the value of drinking unfiltered water. Do you no longer use the Alexa Pure? We use one to filter fluoride out of our city water. You know, I've kind of been having a different way of thinking about that. I've got to looking into a little bit of the different types of water. You know, it's been, hey, come on now. They'll be acting up on me. It's been known for a long time that there's not a lot of benefit in it's not the best thing to drink rainwater. And I kept hearing that, and I read about old timers that say, yeah, they'd have rain catchment and they would use it for washing and stuff, but it was never preferential to drink rainwater. I got to looking into it and you know why that is. Well, the rainwater is it's basically stripped of all minerals. The minerals that we need, you know, that conduct the electricity in our cells. You know, that all of this talk about graphene and the negative things of graphene, and you know, so I went down that rabbit hole, and you know, we hear about the graphene being in the jab formula, and people are scared of this and scared of that. Well, graphene occurs naturally in groundwater, like a spring water or water that comes out of wells or creeks or that sort of thing. It's a natural thing. It's actually something that you really need. It's a beneficial element that needs to be in the water. And what I've come to the realization of is that when you use the Alexa Pure or all these filtered waters, or you're buying filtered water, you know, all if not most of that is all stripped out of it. And what it seems to me, basically what you have is rainwater. So I got to thinking, you know, maybe that's not the, what do you want? What do you want? Come on over here. It's not Friday. You stay put. We have a show to run here. So my concern is that all those minerals, the things that you need for electricity and you know, conducting of the cells and all of that, if that's being stripped out of it, that's maybe not the best thing for you. Now, if I had to choose between treated municipal water with chlorine and fluoride and all that in it, well, I would certainly run that through Alexa Pure or gravity feed filter before. But in a perfect world, having water directly out of the ground, whether it be a spring or a well, seems to me to be the most beneficial. And I've kind of stopped going that route. I used to think filtered water, of course, you know, filtered water is the best. And when I would go to, like, sometimes when you're traveling cross country, you know, you stop at gas stations and, you know, I don't always plan the best or bring my own water. I've always, when having a choice over like a mineral water or a natural water like a Fiji versus an Aquafina or whatever, some of those are purified and some not. Like, well, I always go with the purified. That'd be the best stuff. But I don't think that that's necessarily the best case. That's why another reason to move out into the country, to be able to have access to that well water. Again, I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. I don't know. I don't have all the answers. I'm learning and adapting as we go. But something you might want to look into and think about, for sure. But I've always known that rainwater was not something that was beneficial to you to drink, and old timers, they avoided it. Use that for doing dishes, use it for sanitary purposes, cleaning, washing up, and the drinking water should come out of the ground, if you can. Yeah. Shout out to you, Josh. Yeah, bad news, huh? Bad news if you don't have a well. I've heard, you know, I've watched quite a few people that are posting TikTok videos and such, and are saying, and this is all over, not only in the U.S. but in the U.K., saying that the level of just stink, the water is stinking and smelling bad, like it's got too much chlorine in it or too much bleach and such. And you know, I used to do water mains. And when we put water mains in, we would put plastic or sometimes ductile iron. We did iron, and when we're putting those together, it's not a sanitary condition. We're down there in the mud and we're pushing the pipes together and we've got the pipe dope and all this goo. And when everything was done, we would run real strong mixtures of bleach through those mains to try to clean up and kill any bacteria or different things like that, even before they went to the water treatment plant. And I remember growing up, we drank water out of the tap. And I know fluoride was added, and I know it, and you could smell it. You could smell it. Like you put it in, it would even bubble and off gas a little bit. Well, a lot of people have been talking, they're thinking that whatever is being added to this water in their areas has been increasing. It's even getting to the point where people can't even stand the smell of it. It's just become so powerful, so overwhelming. So a lot of folks are turning to those Alexa Pure filters. Now the problem with those, or not a problem, but one of the concerns with those filters is unless you have the extra attachment, they will not filter out chlorine. Or not chlorine, but fluoride. And if you've ever been around fluoride, that's a whole nother topic that you might want to look into. But that stuff is so toxic that when that's introduced into the municipal water supply, and I've been around this a little bit, doing water mains and such in my past, I've had access to this, and we've kind of worked with some of those people. They have to wear full-on hazmat suits just to handle that stuff, and yet they pour it in the water. I don't know about that. I'm not comfortable drinking water that I don't know the source from. And the closer you can get to the source and having your own well or your own spring, that really is where it's at. I'm at the point now where when I'm traveling from point A to point B, I'm not relying upon convenience stores and gas stations to stop and get water anymore. I see to it. I take my own with me. For sure, even 5 gallons if I'm going to go for extended period of time. Water is very important, and you should be drinking 2 liters a day. We have a new member, Elevator Bear. Shout out to you, Elevator. Good to see you here. Welcome, welcome. And Ethan Haymore, brand new member. Welcome, Ethan. Ethan has a question. Ethan writes, do non-Western women make better wives with more traditional values versus Western women? Also, I sent you an email about helping out. Did you receive it? I did. I'm still working through those emails. Your question is Western women make wives the tradition. I'm not sure what you're asking. Do non-Western women? Well, if you may not know about this or you may know about it, but there is a massive movement taking place right now. And guys are calling themselves the Passport Bros. Have you heard of this? The Passport Bros? The Passport Bros have made the decision that modern Western feminist women have become so terrible that they are not suitable and they're not wife material. And the only option that they have is if they want to have a traditional marriage, is to go out of country. And this is a huge movement. The first time I heard of it was a couple years ago, and now it's just everywhere. And the seething and coping that is going on social media of Western women that are not approving of this, and the name calling and the shaming is actually quite entertaining. But I don't blame them. They're even going so far, some guys are going to South America, some guys are going to Southeast Asia. They're going to places where there are still traditional women, where women will value a man and will not just be the wreck that Western women have become. And some of them, which seems crazy to me, but are even saying, don't bring them back. leave them there. Get a visa, get a passport, whatever you have to do. Go there, get them set up in a home. They're getting them pregnant. They're starting families. They're getting married. But they're keeping them there because they're worried if they come back here, they'll get tied in with the modern values of modern feminism, and it'll wreck any good thing that they had. So it's a very interesting phenomena, but it's not just a meme anymore. It's actually taking place, and there are thousands and thousands of men that have never traveled before, never had really interest in traveling, that are getting their passports now, and they're going out and they're importing or they're setting up families in these foreign countries. And isn't that incredible? Isn't that incredible that that's what it's got to? And even with that, the Western woman still can't look inward and see maybe we've been on the wrong path. Maybe we are somewhat responsible for the situation that we're in, but they won't. Accountability for a Western woman is like kryptonite. It's just, it's sad. It's sad, but it is fun to watch. If you want to see, see some fun videos when these women are made aware of what men are doing and going out of country, it's kind of funny. It's kind of funny, but men will figure out a way. We're very practical, and if something's not working, we're not going to put up with it forever. You know, when you got to get to the point where you stop banging your head against the wall and you figure out a solution to get what you want, and that's what the solution is right now, sadly. And I don't see that changing anytime soon. We have a new member, Jamie. Welcome. Good to see you back, Jamie. Jamie writes, "What are your best side hustles to consider for Proho?" You know, anything in the trades. You know, something that came up in a conversation I had with a guy that I know that's doing quite well. He was a painting contractor, just working by himself, just doing small jobs, doing houses, interiors, sometimes exteriors, worked by himself, just worked out of his van, and has been painting for a long time and has done well. He's not rich, he's not poor, but he makes a decent living. Well, his life has changed a lot lately. He said what he started to find out a few, 10 years ago or so, maybe even less than that, I think he said 5 or 6 years ago, was he would be on jobs and the homeowner would come out and say, "Hey, I've got this door that won't latch. I got this window that won't close. I've got this minor carpentry thing. I've got this minor whatever thing that I don't know how to do. Can you do that?" And what he found himself doing was like, well, I just started kind of doing add-on stuff. I got contracted to paint the house, and I've always been a painter. I've never done anything else like that. Usually when carpentry work or a threshold needed to be replaced or a piece of glass needed to be replaced, you'd just call a carpenter for that. Or the homeowner would do it. You know, all those little things were things that homeowners would have done in the past, even painting your house. We said the men in these homes, places that he's working, they don't have the ability to do anything. They got a door that's squeaking, they don't know what to do. If their kid threw a baseball through a glass window, they don't know what to do. And so they have nowhere to go. The job is so small that if they were to try to call a contractor, they wouldn't return the call because they don't want to be bothered with the little piddly things. And so he found himself getting more and more work. Nothing that took a lot of skill. Some really basic stuff. So, some type of things, if you're Proho and you have a basic set of tools, and I'm going to do a video on this, how a basic set of tools, the mandatory that Proho should have. You should have a tool belt and what should be in it. If you had this with a skill saw and maybe a couple extension cords and some sawhorses, there's opportunities to basically show up and be a handyman, to do these handyman jobs, because the men don't have the ability to do it. They were, over half of them have been raised without fathers, or they just don't have interest, and that skill set is becoming needed and very important, and there's a huge need for that. So I would say a good thing to do if you just wanted to start small with some things that you already had, if you had a pickup, you start with a pickup, clean it up, put some magnets on the side, go around, solicit a little bit. It'll all be word of mouth. All you have to do is just kind of get started. You can post in Facebook Marketplace as handyman, put your hourly rate, put it up there. You work for 40, 50 bucks an hour, 60, whatever you can get, and with a 4-hour minimum, and start building your business and just not be afraid to take things on. And you'll be surprised. People will have you come out and do all sorts of things. You may be painting. You may be replacing a hot water heater. Whatever. There's such a demand for this stuff right now and so few guys that can do it. There's a lot of opportunity. He's turned his one-man painting business into having now several guys working for him, and now he's making good money and just doing light carpentry. So there's a huge opportunity out there for that, just if you can just fix things. The other thing that some guys are doing, and I've been hearing back some really, really exciting success stories, is a dump trailer. You get a dump trailer and you can do lots of different things with that. You can, if you had a handyman service, this would be a really good combination with that. You have a dump trailer, you start with one and you advertise it. I will bring the dump trailer to your house. I'll leave it there for the weekend, And if you're unloading, grandma passed away and you're cleaning out the house, you can load all that stuff in there and I'll haul it away and get rid of it. And this is my fee. This is my charge. This is what I cost or what I charge for it. Well, what you're going to find with that is you're going to have, when kids come in and they're clearing out estates like that, man, they don't want to be bothered with that stuff. And there may be stuff that's worth 40, 50, 60 bucks. If you could take the time to sell it on eBay, they're not going to do it. They're out of state. They're there for a week. They're trying to deal with mother's or grandmother's stuff. They're going to take the good stuff and they just want to get out. They just want it dealt with. If you can be a solution to that problem, you can make a really good living with that, because not only are you getting the money for the rental of the dump fee, but you're going to go through that and you're going to be selling that stuff on eBay, or you're going to set your wife up. You could be out during the day delivering your dump trailer, and who knows, when you're out there, there's going to be things that need fixed. So if you have your tools handy, yeah, well, I can fix this broken lock. Yeah, I can put a piece of glass in. You just have to hustle and make yourself available. Be honest, be reliable, be trustworthy, follow the golden rule, make honesty the best policy, and you won't have to, in 6 months, you won't have to advertise. Word will get out and your phone will be ringing off the hook. You'll be turning work down. But you could have, this could be a family business, just the dump trailer alone. The contents that you're going to get, especially if you focus on estates and families that are clearing out, past families, members that have passed away, you could have that stuff categorized at home. Your wife could be working. She could be listing things on eBay. Get yourself a computer, get yourself a little thermal printer. You can ship through the USPS. You can get free boxes. I mean, there's so many things that you can do that you could double, triple, even quadruple what you're making now by the hour and call your own shots. You're going to have to work hard. You're going to have to grind. But if you're talking about just doing something that is not going to take a lot of skill, that's not going to take a huge investment, that you can use a lot of stuff that you have, man, that would be a great thing to do. Firewood. Firewood is very expensive right now as well. $300 a cord is what is the going rate out here for seasoned firewood for Douglas fir. And if it's oak or hardwood or maple, it's even pushing up closer to $350, $375. When people are paying it, people are buying every bit that's out there. If you can make that type of money and you can deliver 2 or 3 cords a day, that's also a really good opportunity. There's opportunities if you live in the city to get firewood. If you contact the utility companies that do all the brushing, you've seen Ashblend and those national companies that are always trimming brush and trees around all of the power lines and such. In a lot of places, they have a wood lot where they take all that stuff to, and if you contact them, you can go there and cut it. So there's just a lot of things a guy can do, but anything where you have a skill of fixing or repairing is in high demand right now, and people are willing to pay for it because they can't get contractors out, or the contractors charge too much, or it's just too small of a job. That's where you need to fit in. That's where you really have an advantage as a one-man band, is that you don't have any overhead. You can use, if you've already got a truck, you can use the things you have. I mean, good grief, throw your lawnmower in there and your weed trimmer. Who knows if you don't push a lawnmower around for $100, while you're waiting for your dumpster to fill up. Just think about being as versatile as possible and be honest. Just really make honesty the best policy. Follow the golden rule. Go above and beyond. Keep yourself neat and orderly. Keep your hair cut. And word will get out. And you can do well with that. You can do well. We have a comment from Barros Outdoor Living, and member for 12 months. Shout out to you. Welcome. Good to see you here. He says, 25-year-old East Coast man looking to buy. So people have been making fun of my reading, telling me that I can't read. I can actually read. I get so nervous on the live chat that my mind is trying to go faster than my mouth here. I'll slow it down a little bit. Barno says, 25-year-old East Coast man looking to find some land out west. Should I buy land around Pennsylvania where I live to start off, or learn more, or take a leap? Now, I'm of course going to advise you to get away from the East Coast as quick as possible. First off, East Coast man is there, right? Well, I don't have anything against East Coast other than just the density. That's my concern with it. When people start to become stressed, when the power outages start to come, the rolling blackouts, when people start to get hungry, all kindness and brotherly love and civilness is going to go out the window, and it's going to be every man for himself. And you're going to be competing. There's fewer resources with a lot more people competing for them. And it's just hard to get away from folks. They're going to be everywhere like locusts. So I'm definitely an advocate to get out west, because you just have more space to grow, and it's just geographically, it's just a safer place. Now, with that being said, if you move out west, now you're all by yourself and you have no infrastructure and you have no support system. You're going to be moving away from your family, everything you've ever known, friends. You could get hurt and need to move back in home and have somebody take care of you, or friends to come help you with things. Those things happen and come up, and it takes effort and to come and to reconnect and to reestablish that and build a network and friend network, in a friend group. Not to say you can't do it, but you have to put yourself out there and you have to make that effort. Look to yourself, know yourself. Are you an outgoing person? Are you willing to put yourself out there to try to make friends, to try to connect, to get involved, to build community, to build a friend group, to build a war band in your area? Are you willing? Do you have what it takes to do that? If the answer is yes, and you have a good skill set, you don't have to know everything, but can you frame a house? Can you rent a backhoe and dig a trench? Can you put in a septic system, or can you watch a video, learn how to do it? If you're willing to do that and that sort of thing, then I would go for it. I would take the adventure, and you don't have any ties, I would go for it. I absolutely would. If you're older, you don't have the skill set, you're going to feel like you need to rely upon family or friends or friend groups a little bit more, then I'd probably hunker down where you're at. Get as rural as you can. Try to get at least 30 minutes or so out of any major city, and then start building a life there. It's not that you can't do it, but it's going to have to be kind of a personal call. But if I was a young man, it's a great adventure to come out west. It's a very different lifestyle. The people are very different. See, the descendants of our descendants of West Coast man's descendant is very different than the descendant of East Coast man, in that just the willingness to be a nonconformist, to go against the grain, and to take risk, to be an adventurer. Because the men and women that took the risk to forsake everything and to make that treacherous trip on the Oregon Trail over the Rockies and through Indian land and all of the perils that were involved with that. It was said that there was a gravestone about every 100 yards on the Oregon Trail. That's how many men and women and children died on that journey. It was very, very difficult. But the type of people that were willing to risk everything for a new life that moved out west, we're not that far from them. That wasn't that long ago in the great scheme of things. And so that's kind of in the bone of the Western man, of that risk-taking, that throw caution to the wind, where East Coast man is a little bit more traditional. A lot of people from the East Coast, that's what they came from, that's what their ancestors were. We think that we're completely individuals and nothing from the past has any effect on us. That's not true. The Bible, the good book, talks about generational curses, that how a particular mother can have a trait, how she passes that on to her daughter, or a father has a particular trait and passes it on to his kids. And we've seen it growing up. It's often the case if we had a father that was prone to a short temper, or a bad drinker, or just generally angry or nasty disposition, that those characteristics oftentimes are handed down generation to generation to generation. The good book calls it a generational curse even. There even can be demonic spirits that can be handed down from mother to daughter and father to son. That stuff is real, and it happens. Now, I'm not saying that East Coast man is demon possessed, but East Coast man is a descendant of people that were less likely to take risk, that were more content to make a go with where they're at. So it's very different. If you haven't been out here, and The cities are not an indicator. The cities are just a mix of people from all over. You know, they're rarely natives that live in the cities. So if you go into a western city like a Portland or a Seattle, San Diego, Los Angeles, you're not going to get the flavor of what a true West Coast man is. It's a mix of people from all over the world. Where when you get into the rural areas, this rugged individualism, this friendliness, this desire to help one another out and be a lot more open with friendships is noticeable. It's noticeable. What I've noticed with East Coast guys is they're a lot harder to get to know. Like they're gruffer, they're a little bit more reserved and closed off. It's hard to get into the inner circle of an East Coast man. If he doesn't know you or hasn't known your family for a long time, you know, he's gonna freeze you out. You're not gonna have access to East Coast man. He's never gonna let down his guard. However, once you prove yourself to East Coast man, once you spent the time and you've shown your true colors, then you have a friend for life. East Coast man, once he brings you into his circle, then you have a trusted friend. It just is harder to break into. And where your West Coast guys, and I'm talking native, rural living West Coast guys, are going to be a lot more open, and they're going to accept friend groups, and they're going to be more willing to do things and to start friendships without having to prove yourself to them. I mean, it's just kind of the way it is. So in this situation where you're coming and you don't know anyone and you understand the importance of community, you understand the importance of having a group of men that if you're in trouble, I'll come and help you, or if I'm in trouble, you come and help me, then that could be easier for you. That could be easier for you. And that's really important. You know, that was proven to me. I've always known this, and this has always kind of been theory. And when I started putting together the war band, that the idea was we wanted to have about 6, 7, 8, 9, no more than 12 families that we didn't have to be like intimately, you know, involved, you know, hanging together all the time, but we needed to be together and of a common mind. And when we all got together, you know, we've talked about, we put our gear together, we got our radios all sorted, made sure that we had everyone's phone number and a group text like that, so that in trouble, the call could go out and there's going to be help coming. And we all understand it. You know, there's not going to be any questions involved. We all made a commitment to one another, and we made an oath to each other that if your family is threatened, I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's a 3-letter agency. I don't care if it's local. I don't care if it's someone from out of town. And you call for that, we will be geared up and we will be there. We'll be there and whatever it takes. And we will defend your family just to the same extent, with the same eagerness as we'll defend our own. And that was the agreement that we made. And that's going to be very important. And that, you know, I told you the other night when I mistook my sister, her car was here, that she beat me back to the house, and I came in at night and it was dark and there was a strange car and a stranger in my house. Man, that rattled me. I had thought about that and what I would do for it, but when I was able to back out that driveway, get on my phone and call my buddy Peter, who lives next door, and he's like, I'll be right there. I didn't have to explain things to him. I just said, hey, I need some backup. Can you come over now? He's like, I'll be right there. You know, 2-3 minutes, you know, he was geared up and on his way over there. You know, that was really, really comforting, really comforting. I'll tell you, man, it's a very different thing if you have an intruder in your house and some strange car parked outside, and your 5-year-old daughter in the car with you. It's very, very comforting to have another shoulder next to you. You know, I'll tell you. So that's a long answer to your question, but maybe just some things to think about. We have, thank you, Barros. We have a super chat from Leonardo Pinon. Shout out to you. Leonardo says, what do you think about the 1911 45? Well, I think it's an old, antiquated, I have no interest in it. I get it. I understand the whole thing, the grip angle. I know guys are into it. And as I've always said, if a guy claims, I like it because it's cool, or I just like it. I like it because it gives me the fizz. Then that means that all hands off. Then I have no criticism. There's nothing to say. If that's what you want, if you want to pack around a Kimber or a Colt or whatever, and that you want to deal with all of that and the complexity of it, then that's fine. Absolutely fine. And a lot of old guys, swear by it. But to be honest with you, I mean, it's time. If you haven't already purchased something and you're not that guy, then it's time to move on. The technology has moved on, and to go with a G19 or a 19X is just makes so much more sense. It's less fooling around. It's easier. There's a lot more accessories. It's lighter. It's a modern tool. If you are the type of guy that geeks out on that and you understand it and you just like it, you like the all metal, then you can do that. It's fine. But there's also a lot of misconceptions about the ballistics. There's been so much nonsense about the .45 caliber that, the stopping power, and we all know the history and how it was developed and all that. But to be honest, the modern 9mm loads are far superior ballistically to anything that I've ever seen from a .45. It's an old antique from a bygone era. It's 100 years old, over 100 years old. So I wouldn't advise it unless you're that guy and that you like it. But if you're getting into something, just stick with what's simple and what works. Just go with the Glock. It's a no-brainer. I hope Clint Smith won't get upset at me for ratting him out on this, but Clint Smith, if you don't know, is the OG when it comes to personal defense. He runs Thunder Ranch School down in Southern Oregon. I've been down there. Mrs. W and I have been down there many times. One of the premier, one of the nicest range, nicest school I've ever been to, and I've been to a lot of them. My favorite. He is the 1911 guy. He's fired more than, he's worn them out, right? Shot them until the slides have shot off, He's that guy. So I've always seen him carrying those, But the last time I was there, I got a peek at his concealed carry, and guess what he was carrying at this particular time? It appeared to me to be a Glock 19. And I saw that, and I couldn't believe it. I thought, no, I can't be seeing that right. And so then I went to Heidi and asked Heidi about it, and I said, is Clint really carrying a Glock now? After all of the shade that he spread, if you know Clint, right? And she said, in some situations, he is. He is, actually, And, he's like a lot of us. Clint's getting older, doesn't have the hand strength, doesn't have the dexterity, and just the extra complexity and the weight and all of that. He found that in some situations, he was carrying a Glock 19. So if you're going to talk about the 1911 guy, when he wants something that he can really trust, that's going to be there in a difficult situation, that's what he chose. How could I add to that, right? The OG has spoken. All right, but thank you for that. Yeah, I know, I get it. It's not my thing, but if it's your thing, then hands off. If it gives you the fizz, then you carry that. We have a super chat from Sinkable Might 111 and new member. Welcome. Shout out to you. Who writes, do you have any idea on how I can get my girlfriend into firearms? She's not against them. She's pro 2A, but she doesn't feel comfortable around them. Yeah, it's simple. A 22. A 22, either a pistol or a rifle is the entry. And that's what I've always done. That's what I did with my sister. That's what I've done with Mrs. W. That's how you start kids out. It is a lot of fun to set up. Put them in an environment where they're going to be able to succeed and do well, and where it's a nice environment. Don't take them up to some trash pit somewhere where all the Philistines from the suburbs go out and break bottles and leave their trash all around in some garbage dump. Go someplace nice. Have a couple decent targets set up, understand what the fundamentals are, get a table or a rest someplace where she can shoot comfortably, make sure she's got hearing protection so that she doesn't blast her ears out, make sure she's got safety glasses and the proper things. but make a comfortable environment. Don't take her up in the snow. Don't take her out in the rain. Make it positive, right? And then reinforce it with a great day so she has a good memory. So go scout out a spot where it's pretty, someplace up in the woods, out in the country, what have you. Get a couple of fun targets, you know, some flippers or something like that where she can have success. Don't start off too hard, and get her started with the fundamentals so she can have some success. She will enjoy it. Once she starts doing well, and start at 10 feet if you have to, whatever. Move it out to 25 feet. Give her some success. She can see the improvement. Get the targets where you get the feedback, right? Those orange ones where you could see even at a distance. And then afterwards, make it fun. Take her out to grab a burger, go grab a milkshake, whatever. So the whole experience is positive. Remember that first time we went shooting? Man, that was a good time. We went out to breakfast, and then you took me up to this place, and I was able to hit the target and do well, and there wasn't any recoil, and there wasn't any excessive noise, and no one got scared. And then afterwards, you didn't push her too hard, and then afterwards, you went out and had a nice meal. That's how you do it. Give her a positive experience, a fun time, and then build on that. Once she gets to master that, and even sandbag a little bit. Sandbag, let her win. You don't have to be the winner all the time. One of the best sayings in life is discretion is the better part of valor. Sometimes you can let other people have their day in the sun. You don't always need to be the top dog. And that will build a little bit of competition and camaraderie. It will give her confidence, and she will have a good experience. It's not hard. If you've already got it made. If she's pro 2A and she's not already anti-gun, then you just need to introduce her to the sport in a positive way. If you don't have a 22, just go borrow one. Go borrow one, buy a brick of cartridges, and off you go. 22 I like shooting 22 more than anything. It's a blast. Spartan 219, welcome. Good to see you here. Spartan writes, "Hi Cody, the question is from one of my employees, how to deal with coworkers who always get offended and cry all the time. How does Proho navigate?" I have to assume that the employees are female. Proho doesn't want to work side by side with females or have a female boss. Nothing personal, nothing against it, but I just, in this date and time, with the Me Too movement and the risk that you're taking, if someone were to lie on you or you were to say the wrong thing, you can end your job for sure, and even worse, they can end your freedom. And this is happening. So don't think it's not happening. You can offend someone or embarrass someone, what have you, and they will they'll get you in trouble. And it's not safe this day and time to, as a single man, or any man, not single, any man, to be in a closed environment with a woman. I'm sorry to say that, but that's just the way that it is. Proho needs to get a new job where he's working either by himself or with his direct family or working with men. I would extricate myself from that position. If you have a female, I'm assuming this is a female, she's crying all the time. If you have a female that is so mentally weak that she's constantly crying and getting emotional over work, that's a dangerous person. That's an unstable, that is not a mentally healthy person. And that person could do anything, is unpredictable, like a rabid dog that could turn on you. You never turn your back on something like that. It's dangerous. You need to remove yourself from that position, or they do, if you're asking for a friend, and get a different job. That's the advice I would give you. I wouldn't work for a female, and I wouldn't work with a female. Nothing wrong. I just prefer to work with men. There's just too much to risk. Too much to risk. Goodness, we have a $50 super chat from Shooter Hemming, and 1-year member. Goodness, that is so generous of you. Shout out to you, Shooter. Goodness. He says, did it annoy you that so many Adventist speakers talk about Ellen White, how they talk more about Ellen White than they do to Christ? Try to find good Adventist Protestant speakers, but they just aren't interested. Anyone you listen to, you've been a great source for. Yeah, that's a good point. that's a huge problem. So I was baptized into an Adventist church, and Mrs. W and I attended one for some time. We had a great experience. Some of the best, kindest people I've ever met, and a particular pastor that kind of introduced us to the good book and gave us kind of a basic understanding and knowledge of it was so valuable to both of us, and he was so patient and kind with us. With that being said, the more I got involved with that church, and of course, if in any organized church these days, if you're any sort of a capable younger man with any sort of ability whatsoever, they're going to put you to work, I assure you, because there's a huge shortage of men in the churches. There's a lot of women and very few men because the church has become so emasculated. Well, I found myself, even as a new member, immediately being put into positions as deacon, and then I found myself on the pastoral selection committee, et cetera, picking the new pastor for the church. I mean, you just, that's the way that it goes. And what I found with the Adventists is that it was interesting. We were kind of, Mrs. W and I, it was kind of interesting for us because we came in as adults, where most of the people there had been multi-generational Adventists, that their great-great-grandfather, and they had the pedigree and that lineage, and there's a church speak that you just, if you're grown up in that environment, that you just grow up with. It's almost like its own language. And it's funny that when we would be around them, we wouldn't know what they're talking about. They're talking about Loma Linda this, and they're talking about Ellen White this, and they're talking about Kellogg and the spirit of prophecy and all these different things like it's common knowledge, and we're looking around like, I have no idea what you're talking about, right? So that was an interesting place for us to be. They didn't know any different. They had been told from the time that they were infants that Ellen White, the spirit of prophecy, she was a prophet back in the day, and her word, even though she goes and way outside of what you're going to find in the 66 books, which a lot of it is complementary and parallels, but not all of it, right? So they couldn't see it any other way. They were just, the dogma was so strong. Well, of course, she all of her writings are inspired, and that is as important or just has the same authority that the Bible has. Well, us, not having been grown up with that programming, I looked at it and I said, well, yeah, a lot of this makes sense, and maybe not, but I never did look at it as being canon or as being on the same ground as the 66 itself, where a lot of them did. So that was a bit of a problem for me. And then the vegetarianism. The vegetarianism almost, they say it's not a salvation issue, but it pretty much is. And I never felt comfortable. I was never a vegetarian. That's just not going to work for me. I don't think that that's a salvation issue. And when I look at them, many of them, they're pallid and they look malnourished. They look unhealthy. And like, man, I don't know if I can get down with that. And just the importance that they put upon that. It got to the point where I was it was uncomfortable to even, being a non-vegetarian, it was uncomfortable to invite Adventists over, because you always felt like they were going to be peeking in your refrigerator and judging you. It was kind of weird and creepy. And I thought, that's not, the Spirit of God is not there when you feel like that, when you feel like people are looking down their nose at you or judging you because you're new to this particular faith and you don't have the lineage and you don't have the pedigree. That always kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And then the importance that they put on the spirit of prophecy with a female prophet from back in the day, that rubbed me the wrong way. And the vegetarianism. And then when I sat, the thing that really kind of sunk it for me is I was sitting on a pastoral selection committee. And it was a group of about, 8, 9, 10 of us, men and women, members of the church, deacons, elders, etc. The old pastor was going out, and a new pastor was coming in, and bringing in a new pastor and his wife. Well, a candidate had been chosen, and the date was set, and him and his wife came to the new church, and we were going to sit there, and and decide whether this person, this family was worthy to be our new pastor, right? And I'll never forget it. The couple showed up, nice couple, handsome, young, good energy, felt good. But the pastor's wife was wearing a simple wedding ring, just a simple wedding ring. Well, a lot of Adventists, they don't like that, right? And they'll tell you, it's not a salvation issue, but, we look at the Bible, we should be modest. We shouldn't be adorning ourselves with this and that. And okay, I get that, fine. If that's your decision, then you should do that. But the moment you start making that a huge salvation issue, then that's when I have a problem. It turned into a knockdown, drag out. This wedding ring became such a point of contention. It wasn't anything gaudy. It wasn't like she was wearing a 4-carat, VVS stone, right? Simple wedding band. It became such a big issue that the pastoral selection committee was at each other's throats over this particular issue. And I remember one man particularly just getting up and grandstanding and take it off, and that, I'm like, oh, here we go. When you get to that point, an organization cannot see the forest for the trees, needs energy in the church, needs a young pastor with a good family, and they just made their lives, the whole experience miserable over such a trivial thing. That's not where, God's not there. And that was the beginning of the end for me. So that's the problem with these organized religions, is that as they go through the years, they add on stuff, rules, more regulations. It's the same thing that was happening to the Pharisees and the Sadducees when Jesus came and cleansed the temple twice, and he said the exact same things. You're teaching the doctrines of men. You're teaching the things of men as if they were from God. You've put all of these rules and regulations, you've made religion a burden on people. They no longer can enjoy it because of all of these things you put upon them. So you show up and you feel unwelcome because you brought a meat dish to a potluck, or you show up and a woman's wearing a simple wedding ring. When you're fixated on that and that becomes a big point of contention, I mean, the Spirit of God it has long since left, and it's of no value whatsoever. So to each his own. I get it. I was involved in it, and if you believe that, whatever, it doesn't make any difference. I'm not interested in any of that nonsense. We don't need any more religion. We don't need any more religion, trust me. What we need to be religious. And to be religious is quite simple. We're keeping it simple over here at Pro-Ho. Pro-Ho can teach the gospel in just a couple sentences. We keep the commandments, the 10 commandments. God tells us what? There's two things. I'm going to repeat this because we have new people here. When an attorney of the law, the equivalent of attorney, an educated man back in the day, he came up to Jesus, what he was teaching in Jerusalem, and said, "Master, tell us, what must we do to be saved? What can you boil it down for us? What is it that we have to do if we want to be in the kingdom? If we want to be saved, what is it that we need to do? We have a bunch of rules. How many rules did the children of Israel have back in those days? It was arduous. They could only walk so many steps on the Sabbath, and it was just ridiculous. He said, if you love God, keep his commandments, the 10 commandments. We keep the commandments the best we can. Remember the 4th commandment. We talked about that last week. Keeping the Sabbath is going to be important. The Sabbath needs to be kept. Keeping God's commandments, not 9 of them, but 10 of them. The Catholic Church changed the 10 commandments. If you don't believe me, go read it. Go read and see what they did with the Sabbath. Go look it up yourself. I'm not going to tell you. This is your homework. Go look and see. Go look at the Catholic 10 commandments and look at the Protestant, the original, the Hebrew, from the Decalogue. And you'll see what they did. They changed the day of worship from the Sabbath, Saturday, the 7th day of the week, to the first day of the week, Sunday. That's where that all started. And the 4th commandment's important because that's the only one that starts with remember. Remember. So we keep the commandments, and we love our neighbor as ourselves, as we translate it here. We carry one another's burdens. In that is the gospel. We don't need vegetarianism. We don't need wedding ring restrictions. We don't need dress codes. We don't need old prophets from back in the day. That's what we need. Now, that's where we start, right? God will move upon your heart and show you the changes that you need to make. There are the things that you're doing in your life that are a hindrance to you. You could have idols built up in your life. It could be your car collection. It could be pornography. It could be you don't take care of yourself. It could be your food. That could be your idol. There's a lot of different things that we all struggle with. And it's an individual thing. You know, we all have our own vices and such. But when you stick to the gospel, is to start trying to keep the commandments, repent, and repenting is a turning away from those things. God will help you, and God will bring to your attention the things that are an offense to him that you need to change in your life. But in the meantime, it's not a requirement. You don't have to clean yourself up and be perfect before you come to him. You come to him just now, just like you are, with all of your sin and all of your vice and all of your habits. It doesn't matter. That's how you come to him. And then he will start making changes in your life. That's the most powerful testimony that God is real for me, is that to see a man or a woman whose life is turned around, who has struggled with something, with addiction, with whatever that may be, and is able after 40, 50, 60 years to get victory of that and to be set right, to turn away from that and to be delivered from that. That's the most powerful testimony of the gospel. It's simple. Keep the commandments of God. And when we fail or we don't have the strength or the faith to do it and we fall down, just don't stay in them. If you get delivered from alcohol, and you 6 months without drinking and your life's getting better, and then you have a weak moment and you go back because of a party or what have you, and then a lot of people will never recover from that. They think, oh, I let God down, and they'll carry that sin and that burden around with them forever. No, just take it to God immediately. When you wake up and the hangover is over, get on your knees, ask for forgiveness, ask for help, and repent. Repenting is not beating yourself up for years and years and dragging that around you. It's giving it to God, and it's turning away from it. Repentance is turning away from it. Repent one time. Be sad, be remorseful, be broken-hearted about it one time. Give it to him. Do you know what he says? He goes, I take your sin when you give it to me, when you confess something like that to me, and I cast it into the depths, the deepest depths of the ocean, and he says, I remember it no more. But if he ever needs to find it, he knows where to find it, because we'll be carrying it around, right? So if he doesn't remember it anymore, that he has accepted it, he's dealt with it, he's put it away, then you don't need to carry it around either. You've done it, you've repented for it, and that's all there is to it. There's no more to be done about it. What's been done has been done. God's not remembering it. It's time for you to let it go as well. So that repenting is just simply turning away from it. It's not overly complicated. We have a super chat from Andrew Rouse, like house. Andrew, good to see you here, Andrew. Andrew writes, and it's very generous of you, thank you, Andrew, writes, hey, Wranglerstar, was wondering about story behind the naming of Sweet Loaf. I love that name. I'm going off of memory here. Mrs. W is an advocate for fattening babies up. She believes that a fat baby is a healthy baby, and she also was of the belief that a fat pregnant mother is a healthy pregnant mother as well. She took full advantage of her pregnancy. She had the best time of her life. I called her Big Mama. she put so much weight on, and there was nothing that was off the table. She's like, nope, it's healthy for me to I want to make sure that there's plenty of nutrients for my son. And so she did that. So she carried that over to Jack, and he was rotund, as well as the Sweet Loaf was even maybe more so. And Jack looked at her and said something to the effect of, she's like something about a meatloaf, or he was calling her meatloaf or something to that effect. And Mrs. W was not having it. Like, nobody wants to be called meatloaf. And so we shortened it to Sweet Loaf. That's all there was to it, and it stuck. So a lot of people get bent out of shape. They think that that's her name. It's not her name. It's just a nickname. So we call her the Sweet Loaf. Shout out to the Sweet Loaf. We have a super chat from Nature's Landscaping asking about my email. You can email me, Cody at Wranglerstar.com. And if I don't get back to you, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. It's my email. It's been out for some time, and my email moves almost as quickly as a chat. so things get pushed down. I jump on there every morning. Mrs. W, actually, I kind of helped her. She's been taking up some of the load where she is going through them as well. So if I don't get back to you, just the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Keep putting it up there, and I'll try to get on there for you. Goodness. All right, so I want to talk a little bit, I want to talk about or address those of you who want to get prepared for whatever that may be coming, power outages, natural disasters, et cetera, civil unrest, where you need to pack up and go, but you're stuck in a bad situation. You don't have a bug out location, you don't have a piece of property in the country, you're building, you're working towards that, but you're living life right now and you're doing the best you can. That's going to be the situation where most people are. I've thought about that since Overton brought it up, and if I was in that position right now, if I was an apartment dweller living in a condo, that sort of thing, the first thing that I would do is I would kind of start looking to, as an example of the Overland community. Now, the Overland community, this kind of came out of South Africa, Australia, our Australian friends, even England, of building capable, and over there, they're actually quite small, like a Hilux, Toyota pickup and such, but it's, where I would start with that is I would have a capable vehicle that could operate and work as a home base that I could live out of. And I would get about doing that and practicing now. So what that would mean for me is it would be probably in the U.S. it'd be a four-wheel drive pickup, something with an 8-foot bed, as big as you can get. F-150, maybe even a Tundra, and even if you're a single guy, you can do all of this very well with a 4Runner or even a Tacoma, no problem. If you're going to have family, that's going to be a little bit more difficult. Not impossible, but a little bit more difficult. My bug out solution, I would not be putting a whole lot of emphasis and time and resources into infrastructure if you're renting, obviously, right? Unless it was something that I could take with me. It would be a very good idea to have a couple of food grade 55-gallon drum water barrels and a siphon hose. It would be a really good idea to have some water treatment. But remember, all of that stuff, you want to be mobile. If you've got a 55-gallon drum full of water, how are you going to get that in the back of your car? How are you going to transport that? You may have the idea, well, I'll fill it up when I get to where I'm going, and that may be an option for you as well, but be thinking about that thing. So how I would look at it and how I would start setting up my life, and I think this would be this is a wonderful pastime, is to kind of get plugged into that Overland community. Get yourself a four-wheel drive rig. It's going to give you capabilities to get out and around in pretty much any environment, and set it up like the Overland people do. There's so many different options now. There are pop-up canopies. There are some really clever tent systems that fold out that you can sleep a family of 4 in a Tacoma. There's drawers people are building, and you can do all this stuff yourself. There's a bazillion videos on it and lots of guys to help you out with it. Pull out drawers and fold up kitchens where everything is all self-contained. And the Overland principle is really great because what it's designed around is being able to take all of the things that you need to live for extended period of time all into a vehicle that is capable. Not like the grapes of wrath, where we got crap hanging all over the place and you're stuck to the highway. This concept is if the highways were jammed up or access was cut off for the normal routes, where you would have a vehicle that would be capable of cutting through a medium, that may be going a back route or hitting some dirt or some gravel, but has everything that you need for extended stay. And the nice thing about that is that you're investing in something that will not be left behind. And if you need to go, you can go. You're going to have access to all these things at your house. Like, let's say that a hurricane comes through and you need to hunker down, the power out, so the power's out, the water's out for 10 days. Do you not think your vehicle is now become a lifeboat? It's become a bug out vehicle that you're going to be able to utilize right there. You're going to have battery, ability to charge in there. You'll be able to run your engine. You'll have heat. You'll have an inverter. You'll have the ability to do water filtration, water storage. You'll have emergency food. All of the things that you're going to need are going to be right there. It's basically a lifeboat in your own garage. But more than that, if it's no longer safe for you and you don't have the ability, or just you're not comfortable with staying there, now you're going to take all the things, everything's prepped, it's ready to go, and you've practiced it. It's not like, hey, we've got 30 minutes, we've got 15 minutes to get out. Where's the sleeping bag? Where's the water filter? Do I even have one? You know, where's the, do we have propane for the stove? You know, if you're waiting to put all that stuff together at the last minute, you're going to have a hard time. You're going to forget a lot of stuff. It's going to be a terrible experience. So what I would do, and this could be, you could do this with a wagon, you could do this with an old Jeep Cherokee, whatever. There's a lot of, just so much information out there. And how much fun would this be for the family to go out and just start proving and trying this stuff? On the weekends, you're putting together your Overlander, you're starting simple, maybe just a couple water cans, maybe a couple jerry cans, extra fuel, maybe lunch for a couple days. And then the next thing you're going to do is to get a pop-up tent, something where you can sleep, and then you're going to work on your kitchen and that sort of thing. And you can start proving this stuff. You go out on the weekends, you go after work, you spend the night, you go up to the lake, you go fishing, and you're going to become very familiar with what works and what doesn't work. And if push comes to shove and you need to bug out, who's going to be in the best position in the world? You've already tested it, you know what you need, you know how long you can live in it. That's what I would do. And all those things that you're investing in, your water cans, your inverters, filtration, that's going to go to a new vehicle. You're not locking things down. You're not investing in building something that you might have to leave behind and start all over again. You know, I think that would be the obvious and the simple solution, and it would be a fun solution that I think that you would enjoy doing. But that's what I would do, is that I would stay in your apartment and make that comfortable. Of course, that's going to be the best place. It's where you're going to have possessions, your tools, you know, the things that you need. But have a lifeboat, and that lifeboat, I would really look to the Overland community for that. And you can even extend the capabilities by adding a small trailer. There's tons of dudes that once they get their rig set up, maybe they start having kids. What worked for a couple no longer works anymore. They're building Overland trailers. These things could be towed behind. They've got big suspension. They carry their own spare tires. They give a whole bunch of extra capabilities. You know, that's a really, really good option. We have been going to the big Overland meetup. There's two big ones. There's one down south somewhere, and then there's one that's, and also one that's really big up in Leavenworth, Washington. If you're not familiar with this concept, this is new to you, a great thing to do this summer is to get online and look in your area for any site of an Overland festival or meetup. You'll meet some of the best people in your life. That's been my experience. And you're going to meet people that from a crowd you do not expect. What I found the last time Mrs. W and we took the van up to Leavenworth, Washington for the big, huge Overland meetup there. We had so much fun walking around, seeing the idea, what people did, how they set up their rigs, learning from one another. Everyone is so warm and so inviting. All of the big vendors will be there, like ARB. You'll be able to see and put your hands on different products and things that you might want to add to your rig and set up. But the most interesting thing was where the people came from. Me, because I'm a public person, I have a YouTube channel, I was recognized by a lot of people, so that opened up a lot of conversations. People were dropping by, and you know, one thing that men always do is, so eventually it gets around to, you know, what do you do for a living, and what's your work? It was not the crowd that you would think it was. I would kind of think, well, it's kind of maybe the motorcycle, the dirt bike, or the four-wheel drive, you know, kind of your redneck Cletus crowd, and that's not it at all. Cletus is there, but he's a minority. I talked to people that were high up in DOD, a lot of government people with all sorts of like super secret top security clearance people. That was who I was running into. And that was an eye-opener to me, because I thought, these people are in the know, and they realize how delicate and how fragile everything is, and this is where they're investing their money. They're putting their money into this overland movement. They want to have the ability to have a vehicle. These guys had incredible capabilities for internet, encrypted. They had incredible capabilities for long extended stay, water filtration. I mean, it was very, very impressive. I met some guys from the CIA, I met guys from the FBI, I met guys from DOD. Just really a great, great crowd. And that's kind of what I would get plugged into. And that's also, just kind of thinking here as I'm going, that's also going to put you, if you've had trouble, and one of the biggest complaints that I hear from you guys is I cannot get anyone on board with me. Even my own family, like, I see what's going on. I see how dangerous the world is getting. I see how fragile our infrastructure is. And I'm uncomfortable not having something prepared. I want to take care of my family. And so the immediate thing you do is, once you become aware of this and you started to wake up out of the matrix, is you realize, or you go to your family and you want to tell them, hey, you know, we should probably get some things in order, have a plan, you know, a meetup, maybe get some radios, maybe get a little bit of water storage, you know, just start working towards this. Well, what I'm hearing is you're meeting with rejection. Not only that, but they think you're insane, and it actually, your relationship is becoming strained and worse because they think that you're going crazy. But you're not going crazy. They're just living in la la land. They just can't see it, and they won't see it. There's nothing you can do, and it's exasperating. So what do you do from there? You know, what if you approach, you know, the few friends that you have, and they give you the same treatment? You feel like you're all alone and there's no one else around there. By getting involved in this community and putting yourself out there, showing up with your rig, even if you just bought a pickup and you're just getting started with you built a plywood drawer in the back that's got it's holding your propane tank and a stove, and you got a cutting board in there. That's in a pop-up tent, right? It doesn't matter. You start with that, and you'll start plugging in, and you'll start meeting people. You'll find people in your area. You're going to be like-minded. They're going to get it. They're going to understand it. They're going to be very enthusiastic about getting you up to speed and on board. And you might find your people there. And I would say that that's highly likely. I think that's the best opportunity you're going to have to find like-minded people, because you don't have to convince them. They're already on board, and they're most likely way ahead of you on that, and they'll have things to teach you as well. So that's what I would do if I lived in an apartment. If you don't have the ability to do that, then just cover the basics. If you're going to hunker down, you know, think of what am I going to need? 3 months of food. Go to the canned food outlets, go to the discount grocery places, get canned food that lasts a long time, beans and rice, that sort of thing. Just have things to eat. It may not be your favorite. Have a few spices, have some hot sauce, tuna fish, you know, meats, anything like that, cans. Just figure the calories that's going to be required per person, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can go online and you can download lists that will have what you need. And you don't have, you can, if you want to do it quick and now, you can do the freeze-dried food and have that all done, put it away. If you have the means to doing it, that's obviously the easiest way to do it. That's going to last the longest. It's going to be the lightest, easier, the most portable. But if you're hunkering down in your place, 3 months of food, and have a water solution, whatever that may be. I have a friend that lives down in Los Angeles, in the city, in the hood, who has made the decision he's going to hunker down and stay there. That's the situation that they're in, and that's what they have to do. And he's done a really, really good job. When he shows me pictures of his garage, you know, he's closed off his garage so no one sees what's inside, but he's got generator, he's got solar, he's got multiple 55-gallon gravity feed drum systems where he can harvest rainwater, et cetera, and refill these things. You know, he hasn't spent a lot of money on it. There's nothing like super high speed or fancy. It's just really practical things that are going to work. Some propane storage, some alternative ways to cook. That's really what you need. You need to keep warm. So based on your area, you know, California, you're never going to have to supplement. You can get by with a few blankets. It's never going to get so cold there that you can't, you know, hunker down and survive for a few months. But you have to have water, and you have to have food. So you have to take care of those things. Those food grade barrels, if you're going to hunker down and stay in a location, I've got that book I showed you. That book on today's water filter video has a really good rack system where you can build 3 of those. That'd be 160, 55, 150, 160 gallons of water, a gravity feed system that you can put together for just a couple $100 and build a rack so you can get the water out easily. I would be looking at that. But water is very important, beloved. It's very important. If you're relying on the store, bottled water and such, that will be gone. That won't be an option for you. And if there's a massive power outage or an earthquake, the water that you get from your tap, that's not going to come out anymore. And everyone and their dog is going to be on the hunt for it. And it's just going to be depleted very quickly. And that's a huge, huge problem, especially in California and the Southwest states. There's a reason why those places were not inhabited before the white man, or sparsely inhabited. And once those resources are taken away, it's difficult to survive in that environment. And there's going to be so many people trying to get out of there and competing for resources. It could be Mad Max. It could turn bad inside of 10 days, very bad. That's why you want to move heaven and earth to get out into a rural area. We have a super chat from Thomas Ostrowski. Shout out to you, Thomas. Welcome. Glad to have you here. Thomas says, what's your opinion on foul language? How does a man know when he's crossed the line with his words? I grew up in the construction trades, but when I was in the church, I never used foul language. It wasn't. I never heard my dad use it. My granddad never used it. It was not something that we'd used. We weren't raised with it. When I left that church, I adopted the same language that everyone else did in the world and in the construction crews that I worked on. I'm just like anyone else. I'm not so much of a Puritan. There's a lot of Christians that just think that that's just the worst thing ever, and that anyone that uses it has no place of being anywhere near God. I don't see it that way. It just depends on where you're at. It's just vulgarity or vulgarity. What's the root word? Is it common or a base language? The language of the people, kind of how I understood it. It's how particular people speak. And a particular expletive could be super, super offensive amongst one type of community. Like if you were to go and start dropping F-bombs in a Sabbath study at Adventist church, that's just not going to play very well. And it's just not going to work out. And it's not appropriate. Whereas you could be teaching or preaching the Word of God in the inner city amongst hard gang members, and it could be maybe required, maybe even needed, because it's a common language it's how people speak there, and they don't. Its language changes and it adapts to different areas and is regional, and it doesn't necessarily have the same connotation as it does in your Adventist Sabbath study, right? So I guess to answer that question, it depends. Also, there is a time and a place where you need to really get a point across. And if you use these expletives sparingly, or almost never, if you really need to get a point across for whatever reason that may be, it packs a lot of weight when you may need it. And it could be useful to you in that situation. I personally have found, just my personal experience of being in the world and just it being a common way of speaking where I never thought about it, never thought twice about it, was not offended by it. I found that as I drew close to God and got closer to Him, I found that I got a bit of a distaste for it. That I just, when I would use it, I don't know, I didn't like it, didn't feel comfortable. Something felt bad or wrong about it. And I just decided to kind of weed it out of my vocabulary. It just kind of was a natural progression. I can't even say when it happened or how it happened. It just got to the point where I just didn't need it anymore. And, as it also labels you it's somewhat low class if you're using it not to like really hit home or make a point, or I get it, maybe even using it out of frustration where it's not commonly used by you. You know, we all have weaknesses, those things happen, that's one thing. But to just be mixing it into everyday common language, it's very low class and trashy, and unbecoming of a man, in my opinion. I think you should have it to be able to use it when you need it, if you need it. Maybe you get to the point, I hope maybe you get to the point where you no longer need it at all. But I think it's ultimately the closer you get from God, the more that you'll have a distaste for it, and it'll just kind of start vanishing out of your repertoire, right? So it's not a salvation issue. If I saw a guy that was generous with his time, loved the Lord, helped people, was carrying one another's burdens, was helping his family, was helping his neighbor, and he threw an occasional F-bomb out of excitement or frustration, would I look down on that man? Absolutely not. But I think as a man, you know, Paul tells us, you know, when I became a man, it was time, I put away, when I was a child, I acted like a child. I spoke like a child. I played like a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. It's a childish thing as a grown man, especially one with a family that's trying to be an example to his children and to his community, to have a mouth like that when he knows better. I think it's unbecoming. It's something that you guys should probably move away from. Have it in reserve when you need it, but use it sparingly, I think is the advice that I would give. It's kind of what I give myself. Shout out to you, Thomas. That's a good question, actually. We have an interesting member comment here from Kirk Wagner, 49-month member. Shout out to you. And Kirk has a comment. He says, love your content. Can you clarify what you said? Gospel is being saved by grace through faith in Jesus, but we still should keep the 10 if we love him. Yeah. So there's a lot of lazy Christians that think once saved, always saved. What that means is we're saved by the blood of the Lamb. We're saved by Jesus, and we're no longer bound by the law. And that's true. That's what he's asking for some clarification. Are you wanting me to clarify? Are you saying that we can save ourselves by keeping the commandments? No, I'm not saying that. What the commandments are, the best way I can describe this to you is a mirror. And when we look in the mirror, we see that our face is covered with dirt, right? If your face is covered with dirt and you don't have access to a mirror, you don't even know you're all filthy. You come out of the coal mine, you're looking around, you're seeing everyone, you're all black and covered with coal dust. You don't even know it. You can't even see it. When you're not even aware of it. When you look at a mirror, you look at yourself like, oh, I'm all dirty. I got this stuff all over my face, right? That's what the commandments are to me. They are the mirror that shows us all of the sin and all of the ways that we are coming short of the glory of God, of Christ's example. What that shows us is like, oh, I need to clean myself up. Now, can you clean yourself up with a mirror? No, you can't. It's just like saying, you know, I can't fix my soul problem, I can't fix my sin problem with these 10 commandments. They're a mirror highlighting to me how I've fallen short, all the things in my life that are wrong, that I need to get sorted out. Christ is the only thing that can clean your face off. The blood of Christ is what cleans your face off. But are you going to, with that being known, are you going to say that once we've accepted that gift of salvation that comes through Jesus Christ, that we are no longer bound or have an obligation to try to keep these commandments? Like, which one are we not bound by? Are we bound by thou shalt not have another God other than Yahweh? Is that we are no longer bound, we can murder, we can steal, we can lie, we can cheat on our spouse, we can break the Sabbath. Are we not bound by these things? Which one of these 10 commandments as a Christian, as a saved person in Jesus Christ, are we not obligated to keep? God told us what? If you love me, you'll what? If you love me, you'll keep my commandments, right? So that's the standard. We're not saved by that. We'll fall short of it. Every one of us each day will probably fall and have impure thoughts about a woman, or will not be completely honest, or will lie by omission, or will get angry or lose patience with our spouse or with our wife. We're bound by these. We are, God tells you love me by keeping my commandments. But what we have is we have an advocate for all those times where we fall short or we're not able to keep them. Christ picks up the slack for us, right? When God looks upon us at that judgment day, none of us are perfect people. None of us will be able to stand there in a pure white garment, which represents purity. No, mine's going to be filthy. It's going to be almost black of stains from filth and sin. Right? God tells us that. He says, your righteousness, there are none righteous. No, not one. Your righteousness is like a filthy rag. That's what the Bible tells us, right? You think you're holy, you think you're doing good. I tell you the truth, your righteousness that you think you're so good, it's like a filthy rag. And you know what the filthy rag was? It was a menstrual rag, to not put too fine a point on it, just to give an example. In that day of judgment, and I don't care, all of us have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, stand there at the judgment wearing this filthy garment. God looks upon us and says, how can I admit something that's so soiled and defiled? How can I let that into my existence of purity and perfection? Jesus takes his robe of perfect whiteness and wraps it around us. And when God looks at us, he's looking at us, he sees the purity, he sees the perfect life that Christ led and imputed upon us, that gave to us. So of course, I'm not saying you can save yourself by keeping the commandments, but you better well believe that we have an obligation to be moving onward and upward and trying to live by and meet that standard the best we can. And when we fall short, we have an advocate, which is our Savior. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. It's not difficult, it's not complicated. But to think we're exempt from the commandments of God, that we don't have any obligation to try to make that our standard, is foolishness. We have a super chat from my125-21252, shout out to you, and member for 3 months. Says, just to add, don't be afraid. Wife and I got fired for no job. I'm a pilot and wife is a nurse. Had to sell the house. You can do it. God is trustworthy. Right there. Right there is courage. Right there is courage. I don't want to hear, and I know what sacrifice is. Mrs. W and I did the same thing when we were in a similar position, but we chose to. Do you know what pilots make? Do you know what was given up? What type of a career? Do you know the passion that pilots have for their job? Most of them have a greater passion than you do for yours, that you're unwilling to quit. Most pilots get into aviation because they love it. It's everything to them. It's their life. This man gave all that up under principle and went forward in faith to start a new life in probably a new career. So what's your excuse? Do you know what he gave up? Probably gave up a 6-figure income, a great job. And his wife, his whole family, the worry, the fear, it takes a tremendous amount of courage to do that. But that's what's going to be required of you. Right now, beloved, these tests, this may have been a test right here. These tests, like that this family just went through, and that the decisions that you're going to have to make, or maybe are making right now, are important, because they're showing God who can be trusted. Who's going to be able to stand up against opposition, against the adversary in a difficult time? And we're tested with little bits at first. And if we respond to those in the right way, if we show the faith and courage to step forward in faith with these little things, then we'll be trusted with greater things in the future. But if you're unwilling, if you know in your heart and soul that your particular situation, your job, where you're living, the school that your kids are in, or maybe that you should be homeschooling, you know how they're being indoctrinated, you know that they're in the arms of the enemy 6, 8, 7 hours a day, and yet you're too afraid to quit because of my job or career, homeschool or to downsize your life or to make sacrifices for your family, if you're unwilling to do that, then you're not fit to be a soldier of God when the trial really comes, when the difficulty really starts to add up. You will fold. If you folded under the fear of the jab or COVID or losing a job, and then you don't have a lot of backbone. It was a shaking of a tree. It was a division of peoples. It was an eye-opener to God. It was an eye-opener to us as to who has courage and faith and who doesn't. Now, is that too late for someone that fell on the wrong side of it? No, it's not. But you have some catching up to do. That's an example to me right there. That's a tremendous, tremendous act of courage, Nate. Shout out to Nate. Nate gave up a lot to do that, I assure you. I know a lot of pilots and have known a lot of pilots, and I know how they are, and I know how difficult that must have been. God will reward you, Nate. That's very encouraging. We have a super chat, we have a comment member from Jason, and 3-month member. Shout out to you, Jason. Jason says, hey, Cody, any advice on dealing with in-laws who constantly make judgments towards my family's country lifestyle? They're always making comments. Just get away from them. Just get away from them. You don't, if they're disrespecting you and they're trying to actively tear down your authority, the respect that your family has for you, working behind your back to bring you down in the eyes of your family, maybe your children, then you need to cut them off. That's a poisonous, you have a snake in your house that you need to root out and get rid of. And I'm always about give everyone a chance. Give them an ultimatum, but have a steel ramrod for a spine. This is what you're doing. This will stop. This is what needs to take place. If it does not stop, then you're out. I will move my family away. We will not have anything to be part of you. You will not have access to my children, etc., etc. You have a job to protect your family first and foremost. The Bible tells us it's usually in-laws. The Bible tells us that when a man and woman are joined together, it's very important that they leave. You need to get out of you need to pull the woman out of her home. The groom needs to get out of his parents' home. You gotta pull away from them. They will kill you with, how do I put this? You need to be your own man. You need to do your own thing. It's a terrible thing to have a family member and that's what you're hearing. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes. You don't know the whispers, the comments, the things that are maybe being said to your children, to your wife behind your back. Sometimes they'll keep that from you because they don't want you to get mad. They're just trying to keep the peace. There's no more keeping peace when they're actively trying to destroy your family. If there was an invader that broke into your house and was trying to harm your family, what lengths would you go to root this out and to prevent this or to put this threat down? Right? You would even go so far, I would like to say, most of us we would go to prison if it meant protecting our little ones, our families. I think most of us here could say that. You're faced with the same thing. They're trying to destroy your family. They're destroying your credibility as a father. They're destroying the respect your family has for you. They are a toxic poison, a snake in your house. You need to get rid of it. So give them an ultimatum. This needs to stop. This is how it's going to be. And if you don't adhere to it, these are the consequences, and you need to follow through. You need to be willing to pack up and move. Geography is the best solution for a situation like that. Increase it. Take away their access. If they're not respecting you and your headship as head of your house, throw them out. They're gone immediately. No questions asked. But give them a chance. Always give people a chance to reform. Thank you, Jason. That's a good comment. That's a problem with a lot of folks. We men think that we need to keep the peace, that's paramount, and that's not paramount. Protecting your family and your respect and headship of your house is paramount. And anyone that threatens that, that needs to be eliminated. We have a super chat from Nazi. He says, where do you get health insurance if you don't have a corporate job anymore? I still have a 3,500 HSA, but no insurance. Kind of makes me nervous. Yeah, Mrs. W got us into something that's been awesome. So we paid the, I mean, for the last 16 years, first 16 years of our marriage, we paid for private health insurance. When we dropped it last year, our health insurance with a massive deductible that we could never use because the deductible was so high, we only kept it for some major catastrophic thing, because I would have just dropped it altogether, but Mrs. W wanted to have it. So that was a concession I made. We were paying $1,600 a month for our family for catastrophic health insurance that we couldn't use. A house payment, a good house payment. So she found a private Christian organization, where people pay into it. If there's interest, let me know, and I'll have her, we can have her jump on a live stream and explain this, because this has been a good deal for us. And it's a fraction of what we were paying before. I don't know what it is, $300 or $400 a month. I'm just guessing, it could be wrong, but it's a whole lot less than what it was. And how it works is that you pay, there's a bunch of families, thousands of families that pay into this. You pay into it every month, and then when you have a need, so the first time we used it is when I broke my femur last winter. And we had to pay, so we paid out of pocket for all this. I don't know what it cost. It was like $40,000, $40,000. I mean, it was a lot. We paid it, and then we were reimbursed, and it worked out perfectly. As we got I don't even know that we paid anything. As the bills came in, Mrs. W filed the paperwork and sent them over to this organization that she found that we're part of, and they wrote the checks. They paid for everything. And we've had a couple, 2 or 3 things like that since we've been a part of it, and it's been great. So she handles all that sort of thing. She found it. But man, that's been the best thing that we've ever had, because we were able to use it. And there's no deductible. It's wonderful. So I don't know what it's called, but it's good. I'm glad to shed that. Yeah, I think it was maybe even $1,600 a month for unusable health insurance. It was terrible. Terrible. We have a super chat from Brandon. Good to see you, Brandon. And new member, welcome. Brandon writes, I owe you more than words can say. Cold showers have truly changed my life. Please keep speaking the gospel. Your brothers are behind you. Yeah, gentlemen, beloved, I cannot tell you, this is not quackery, this cold shower thing. Now I'm, 4 weeks into it, 30 days into it. Yeah, 4 weeks, a month. I've been doing it for a month. Cold showers, and I've always done 3 minutes. Sometimes a few more. I'm going to jump up to 4 minutes, I think, because I felt so good today. I owned that shower this morning, man. I was in there. I'm like, I was even telling it that I owned it. the games you have to play, but it's not cold to me anymore, to be honest. I think actually, now this is easy for me to say because I haven't done an ice water full submersion, but I think that it's worse. I think that the cold shower is worse than just doing a full submersion in a pond or a river or a creek or ice bath or whatever you have at home, whatever you can put together, feed trough, right? Because of the sprinkling, where you're on and off. I think that's worse. I know that when that source water hits me, and I just stand there, my skin does not feel cold. It's the back, that's getting the air on it, and then when you turn around the back, it's like, it's kind of uncomfortable, and then that cold water hits you, and then it's not cold. So I'm curious. I wonder if the cold shower isn't worse, but it's incredible. Just the focus, clarity, It's amazing. It's amazing. People are even claiming that they no longer get sick, that they're not getting the flu anymore. But what a way to start your day. I mean, it absolutely supercharges it. It'll take like 20 years off your life just in your ability to get up and get going in the day. And it's so easy. Of course it's from God, right? You don't have to, it doesn't cost you anything. There's nobody grifting. There's no one trying to sell anything to you. You don't have to go anywhere. You can do it in your own home. It actually saves you money because you don't have to heat near as much hot water. And when the zombie apocalypse comes, all cold water pro hos are going to have an advantage because we're going to be climatized. You know, it also, another side benefit, if you work outside, I no longer wear, before, I lived in long underwear from about, I would say from September into June. I was in it top and bottom, always wool, always. Always, no matter what. No, inside, outside, always, because it's so cold all the time. I don't wear that anymore. Mrs. Debbie and I, people look at me weird now. Mrs. Debbie and I have been going out, we got to the coffee shop on the weekend. Before, man, I was all huddled in there. I put a flannel shirt on with no t-shirt. I throw my jeans on. I don't wear long underwear anymore. I don't wear any of that. My ability to withstand cold and just be comfortable. I was out, it was 12 degrees the other day, and I had to hook up it was like 5 o'clock in the morning. It was cold and windy. And I had to go out and was hooking up the snow bike trailer and getting the trucks ready and all that. I went out there with a flannel shirt on, half unbuttoned, no t-shirt, rolled up, a pair of jeans, barefoot, and out in the snow. And put the trailer on and no gloves. And, you know, I felt myself getting a little bit cold. You know, I felt the cold kind of settling in. And I just breathe, kind of focus on it, think about it. Like almost it's hard to explain, but almost make a decision not to be cold. And just feel my body kind of warming up. If I found myself, I was standing there, I've got an electric jack on the tongue of that snow bike trailer. And it's, goodness, it's slow as, it's slow as molasses, man. It takes forever for the thing to come down. And in the past, I remember coming out in the morning, just shivering, like, oh, this thing is so slow. I was standing there in my shirt, unbuttoned, no shoes on, jeans, just two articles of clothing, a pair of jeans and a flannel shirt with no undershirt. And I felt myself getting a little bit cold, you know, like 18, 19 degrees. I just kind of go down into kind of a squat where I'm firing off my quads like you do. You know how quickly you heat up when you exerting your legs or you're lifting things like that. And just held that position a little bit, just for a few seconds. Felt the blood increasing, felt my body getting warm, felt heat coming into me, and the problem solved. You know, just little solutions like that, just little benefits like that are really cool. Like I would have never thought of it. It was funny because I saw Jack coming out and he had all his clothes on, he was freezing and trying to get out, and I was just chilling out there. And that's a direct result of that cold shower and climatizing you to that, and just realizing, just your mind taking charge and realizing, you know, I don't have to be cold. I can choose not to be cold. I can have some control over this. And this is 4 weeks in. Can you imagine the benefits when you really learn to harness this ability? You know, when you're going down and you're doing 10, 15, 20-minute ice baths in 36, 37 degree water. I mean, you're going to be like it's going to be like having a superpower. It's incredible. If you can't do this, gentlemen, if you don't have the balls to get in that cold shower, you can't be pro-ho. I'm sorry. You got to do it. Just try it. Just give me 30. Just do it for 30 days. If at 30 days you say, I find no benefit to this, then I'll have nothing to say. Everyone that I know that's in my orbit, my circle right now, is doing it, male and female. I kid you not. I kid you not. I just heard, we have a young girl that comes over and helps out Mrs. W with some babysitting, and she told me, I just started doing, her husband, which is a friend of mine, he's been doing it. She just started doing it. What's your excuse? People can see the benefit, and they want some. Man, I don't know how else to tell you. You got to do it. You got to do it, gentlemen. Mr. Jason Barr, too, you remember, welcome. Always good to see you here, Jason. Jason says, I can't recommend Christian healthcare ministries enough. They have picked up an incredibly large bill from my moto accident, all paid, no questions asked. Yes, I think we have the same thing that Jason's talking about. It is a Christian-based organization, and to become a member, you do have to either have you have to have a note from a pastor. You have to have an affiliation of some sort. So it is for Christians, but it's great. Yeah, it's absolutely great. It took care of, we had a massive bill when I broke my leg and all of the expense, everything that went along there. They took care of all of it. No question, just, it was done. It was awesome. Life-changing. Yeah. Thank you, Jason. Yeah, I think Christian Healthcare Ministries, if it's not that organization, it's something just like it, but it wouldn't surprise me if that's the same one. We have a super chat from RDS98. Shout out to you, RDS. And RDS writes, we have a creek that runs through our property, but since we're in a farm state, there's a lot of chemicals in it. Will filtering make it drinkable? Oh, yes. Yeah, it will. You know, I don't know. That's a shame that it's so contaminated. Why don't you have a well if you live out in an area like that? If you have property, I would imagine you'd have a well. I would have it tested. So if that's your only option, of course you have to drink something, right? What I would probably do is I would invest in like a Berkey water filter or an Alexa Pure or an Aqua Pure. I think we have all three of those. Those gravity filters are pretty darn good. But just to be sure, get the filter, run the water through it, and then have the water tested. If you go to your local water bureau department, they have an avenue for it. It's not very expensive. It's $25, $30. You go there, you pick up a couple bottles, and you pull the samples out, and they'll test it for you, just to find out for sure. So I can't tell you. I don't know what's in it. I don't know the effectiveness of the filter, but the only safe way to do it would be to have it tested. If you're going to be drinking it, feeding it to your family, then you need to invest in having that tested. That's what we've done in the past, even with the filters. But I would say those filters are pretty good. You know, they've been using those filters, like missionaries and folks that live in places that have famously dangerous water. I know personally are taking those with them and using them they haven't tested anything, or just using them as their source, as their supply of drinking water, and are reporting back to me that they're having good results with them, that no one's getting sick. So take that for what it's worth. Ryan Warren, our newest member, welcome, welcome. And don't forget, we're going to be wrapping it up here pretty soon, but you guys, you new members, have unlocked a few, I don't know how many, but a couple more. We have a couple more options for members-only emojis. I know it's childish, but we like it. It's fun. So we're going to need to make those. So you get with any of the moderators your ideas here in the comments. The middlemen will bring that to me. They will be the ultimate decider, and what they decide on from your input and their input, I will make it so. I put it completely in their hands. So if you don't like them, don't complain to me. I'm only making them. We have one last super chat, Mr. 125-21252, shout out to you, and member for 2 months. You will be receiving the new member emoji. Thank you very much. He says, you brought a tear to my eye. Thank you. Wanted to give a word of encouragement. God will show up always. I'm proud to live in the end times. Chin up, fellas. Be a man. Stand up. No thanks for what you do. Yes, gentlemen. If you're getting black-pilled, if you're suffering from depression, if you're looking around and like thinking it's hopeless because things are declining and they're not what they used to be, and you can see that they're only going to get worse, don't get depressed. One of the best remedies for this is the cold shower, believe it or not. Do the cold shower and the Wim Hof breathing method. Do those two things. It's not going to cost you anything. I'm not grifting here. I'm not selling you nothing. You go on YouTube, you can download it, find out. With a little bit of research, you can find out what it is. It's simple. It's all over the place. Just get it and do it. The Wim Hof, don't be messing around with the 15-second cold shower. Be a man, gird up your loins, get in there like all of us are doing. Pro-ho gets in and does a 3-minute shower, and that's our baseline. That's where we start. Start with that. Start your day with that cold shower. Go into your Wim Hof breathing method, and then get your day started. Go get your coffee. Do this on an empty stomach, and then go get your coffee and all that stuff and get going. Once that's done, realize that we have the honor, in my opinion. Of course, no man knows the time or the hour. If anyone tells you that they know the day of the second coming, or when the prophecies will all be revealed, they don't know. It's clearly told us in the good book that no man knows but only the Father. So if anyone says he knows and is getting out the timeline and all that, don't pay any attention to it. But we can see the sign of the times. We have the prophecy. We can see, when you see these things, look up, for your redemption draws near. It seems to me that we may be in that final generation. And how many people have been looking for the second coming? What an opportunity. What an honor. And to be of that small group of history, and then to be one of the chosen, called out of the world of God, one of those called to be in the army of God. And we don't advocate violence here. This is a spiritual battle. We're not about violence. That's not the solution. That's not our role. We battle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities. It's an incredible honor. And we have to get ready for the job. Not only do we have to get in the Word and be reading and spending time in prayer, praying with our family, praying with our wives, take care of your body, even if you've let yourself go. I did too, man. I dropped 40 pounds after COVID. If I can do it, you can do it. There's no secret. Just stop eating so much and get out and move around a little bit. Be optimistic. Be excited for life. Have enthusiasm. Starting the day with a cold shower and being enthusiastic and moving around is going to help with all those things. It's going to change your mindset. And then having a purpose. Our purpose is to prepare as many people as we can for the fight to come. That's the spiritual battle. Who's going to lock shields with me? Will you stand in the gap? Will you stand shoulder to shoulder with me? Will you forsake everything? Job, family, career, a-hole parents, a-hole family members that are tearing down your family? You may even have to forsake children. You might have to forsake your wife or your husband for the gospel's sake. Paul tells us, whoever's not willing to do this, to forsake even these, is not worthy of me. Now, Lord forbid that we have to do that, but it may be. Many of you are reaching out to me with all sorts of problems with family members that are tearing your families down, that are working behind the scenes to undermine you. You need to cut it off. You need to stop it. Number one, you need to be the husband of protection, the house band of protection around your home, and that's from foreign and domestic. That's from foreign and domestic. So act accordingly. Do what you need to do. If you don't have the courage to leave your job, your security, your comfort for the leading of God, or to do what you know to be right, then you don't have any business standing next to me or these great men that are here in the comments. Because we're willing to do that. We put our hand to the plow. I'm preaching the word the best I can here. I'm putting everything at risk, my channel. Thank you, my12521252. We'll end with that. Thank you, beloved. I appreciate you coming here. It's great to see the stream is building. We're getting a little bit bigger all the time. I'm going to get with Overton and the middlemen these next couple days. We're going to come up with a strategy of how we're going to start getting some unique content over on Rumble. I have felt very good about the meeting I had with them. They're of the same mindset. They're not going to limit what we can say. We're not going to be living in fear over there. Now, we're not going to kill the golden goose, but we're also going to start having a plan, having an alternate place. And how cool will it be where we can break down and set up the camera here, and we can build an AR, or we can get into depth on how to do deep cleaning on our G19X, or we can talk about body armor or night vision or ammunition choices and that optics, and that sort of thing. That's a big part of my life. It's a big passion that's been left out because I can't put it up on here because it's foreboding. So we'll figure out how to do that. I'll talk to the middlemen. Start thinking about that, how we can do that. I'm thinking right now, maybe we pick one day, maybe we move Fridays over there, where the live stream goes over there. Maybe we simulcast. We'll see. I don't. Simulcast's not going to work. I'd rather just do one or the other, but we'll see. Either way, we'll make it happen. We have one last super chat. I'll grab this. This is from Leonardo. Shout out to you, Leonardo. Leonardo writes, what do you think about the economy in 2023? Man, I have no idea. It's a mixed bag. All of the rules, everything that we've been able to use for forecasting, that's all out the window now, isn't it? So who knows? I don't care, man. I just go, just kind of go day by day, trusting in God. God told me that He knows He knows what we have need of before we even ask. He also tells us, fear not. And sufficient is the problem for the day. He tells us, you know what, you got enough to worry about today without you trying to forecast and plan years in advance, things you don't have any control over. I trust in our ability as Americans, the most adaptive people in the world, to adapt to any situation whatsoever. And once we know what's in front of us and the task, the difficulty or the struggle, we will rise and we will do what we have to do to get through it. So spending an inordinate amount of time or resources worrying about things that we have no control over is non-productive. Enjoy your family, enjoy your food, enjoy your sleep. Trust God, move forward in faith, knowing that we're on the winning side and we have nothing to fear. And though He slay me, I will serve Him. As simple as that. Thank you, beloved. May God bless you and your families. We'll see you on tomorrow's live stream.